Hello, my name is Lex Parker and welcome to my Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad in On3. The following scenes are going to illustrate some of my techniques in building the layout from the ground up, the structure itself of the layout, the background scenes, the murals, some of the rock work and the scenery materials, the lighting of the layout itself, and a few other additional ideas that you may or may not have seen on some other layouts. I hope you enjoy these scenes, and I hope you get some benefit out of some of them and maybe some ideas as well. Again, thank you very much for visiting, and I hope you enjoy this tour. The layout that you see on this video is actually the second layout that I built in the basement of my home. The first layout was mostly complete, and for me the enjoyment was in the building of the layout, and it was pretty much complete at some point around 1996, and so I decided that it was time to take it apart, and it now survives in 2 or 3 other layouts, some friends of mine. When we took the layout apart, one of the things that I found was the planning wasn't as well done as I had anticipated, because I never really thought I'd be taking it apart and having to get rid of it. So in building this layout, I decided to do a little bit different planning in the way it was built so that it could be reused at some point and relocated in the future. So one of the things that I decided to do was to draw up a floor plan of the entire basement and then start planning the track plan, in that space. And I did it on a computer using CAD, and designed the framing to work with the layout itself. I did the plan of the lighting that would coordinate with the lighting of the scenes as well. Some of what you see here is the framework for the scenery and the rocks and so on, and I'll get back to that, the construction of it, a little later. But you'll see that the part of my layout is still unfinished, and it's a work in progress. This is the end that I avoided in the previous 5 segments. They show models that are under construction, scenes that are under construction, unfinished areas, and these areas will be discussed in a short while. This is also an area at the other end of the layout that is under construction. Bridges are done, the trestles have to be built still, and some waterfalls, but this is all work in progress at the moment to finish the other end of the scene of the layout where we leave Charmer. So as you can see, it's not all finished, and this is sort of a work in progress in this particular area. This is where we leave Charmer, coming out of the end of the yard with Terrace Avenue overlooking the yards themselves. This is an example of the framework that I used, using a conventional method of L girders that are fabricated from a 1x3 and a 1x4. On top of that sits the tray that is prefabricated using 1x3s. Again, I use all clear pine. The tray itself has a frame down each side, and then horizontal joists at 16 inches on center. Those are then placed on top of the L girders. Around the edges are gussets that support the fascia. The fascia is made from tempered masonite, not conventional masonite, but tempered masonite, because when you paint it particularly with water-based paint, it will not warp or buckle. It also enables you to go around much tighter radiuses when curving the tempered masonite, so that it doesn't crack or break when the radius is too tight. Where the layout takes a slight angle at the end of the yard, the legs are braced with some diagonal 2x2s, again just to stabilize and stiffen the legs so that the layout doesn't wobble with these long lengths at those particular joints. The layout being a loop requires one to go into the inside of the loop. and I didn't want to use a removable section for this, so I created this one area here that is the duck under, and it's all padded. A number of times I've come up a little bit too quickly and smacked my back or my head on the framing. So this portion here is a prefabricated panel that wraps around the underside of the layout and is upholstered with padding, foam padding, and leatherette. This gives you an idea of just how it fits into the layout. The other idea that I have to highlight the layout is not to put color in the fascia or the walls below the layout, or even the floor for that matter. So I use very neutral colors. The fascia itself is just a very dark battleship gray. The walls are very dark brown, and the floor covering is again just a neutral gray. The idea of this is to enable the layout itself to be the feature with all the color, not the fascia. My tabletop is 54 inches throughout the yard. There's a 4% grade in the layout going down to osier and then back up to Charma, 4% being the standard maximum grade that the D&RGW actually ran. When you get down to osier, the layout is at 47 inches. The other thing that I decided to do is not have anything stored on the floor under the layout. I wanted to have a completely clear area so the layout basically just floated in the room itself. In order to do this, around the perimeter, I hung the layout off the wall with no legs at all. It gives a more uncluttered feel to it and allows the concentration of view for the viewer, to the layout, instead of being distracted to what's on the floor or in storage and so on. The gussets are all 3/4 inch plywood. They're 2 feet by 2 feet with a 45-degree angle. They're fastened to a 1x2 cleat that is located wherever there's a stud on the wall, and it anchored to that, so that it's extremely stiff. The other key component on the layout construction that I decided to use was an armrest. One of the worst things that can happen is someone leaning on the layout where the finished scenery is. So what happens is people can now come along and lean on the layout, spend some time viewing the scenes without actually destroying or damaging any of the finished scenery areas that along the front edges.